All right, we're live.
Okay. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'll call the Finance and Corporate Services meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Due to COVID-19, we're doing it over Zoom. We've got staff at our disposal and senior leadership team as well to answer any questions. We're going to start with the open delegation. We have one open delegation tonight by Roger Gray concerning an exemption from regulatory bylaw 2010-036 to permit an indoor state of the art shooting range located at 342 King Street. I'll now call upon Roger Gray to provide us with his open delegation. Mr. Gray, you have, in accordance with the procedural bylaw, you will have 5 minutes to provide your comments.
Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, council members and staff. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Good. All right. I don't know if you can see me or not. I actually combed my hair tonight. So I'll be quick. I only have 5 minutes. I guess so we've come before you this evening. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. Regarding a permitted use letter that we put an application for in. And our results came back that based on that letter, we were permitted use under the zoning of light industrial, but based on your bylaw 2010-036, discharge of a firearm within the city of within the Barrie city limits, there was an issue with that, and they through some discussions with obviously the planning, your economic development manager and the clerk suggested we put a delegation towards you guys. So what we're looking for, I guess, is an exemption to the light industrial zoning to allow that permitted use. What I'd like to do is just quickly give you a quick summary of our business plan, and then I did send in a PowerPoint that backs up some statistics and stuff for you guys, and hopefully allow you to answer a few questions. So basically a quick summary of our business plan. Oops. Oh, there we go. So GunLinks is going to be an educational and sports shooting facility range that will be state of the art, that will be located in Barrie, and will serve clients that are in the law enforcement, military, security industry, as well as the private members who enjoy target shooting and hunting. We intend to offer a 3-tier educational shooting range system where we'll have tactical 50-meter and 100-meter long gun ranges. We'll also include some other services as well. Part of those other services will be teaching our customers about how to handle firearms, how to shoot properly. We intend to also help customers clean their guns, learn how to take care of them properly, and show them how to carry on with light cleaning. We'll also offer a gunsmith service to all our customers. Our vision is to be the go-to educational and shooting range facility for all those living in and around the Simcoe County and Southern Ontario regions. Our intention is to gain national recognition for our brand all over Canada. This is why we're willing to go the extra mile to ensure that we hire and have the best people working with us. The Barrie location is not only strategic, but it's also enabling and conducive to all our various customers as well as our employees. Our location is easy accessible so that the event we have new customers intending to use the range for the first time. It's easy to locate us. Our strong selling point is the fact that we have partners that are and competent employees that are experts who have a great deal of knowledge in the industry and also understand our vision as a company and willing to work to ensure it becomes a reality. Two of our co-owners are ex-military and current active police officers in the SWAT division in Barrie, one in training and one as a lead officer. And they also currently trainers for the OCFO, which is the Ontario Chief Firearms Office. They do roughly 2 to 4 courses a month and have a very good success rate. Our product and service, we intend to fully bring our partners' experience to bear in this business by ensuring that GunLinks Inc. offers all our customers various training services not offered by other sports shooting ranges in and around the region. Our various services stem from the fact that we will be operating 3 types of shooting ranges in one location. This will not only broaden our scope, but allow us to have more customers coming to our gun shooting range, but it will also ensure that we generate more revenue and growth for our business. All the services we intend to offer are fully permissible under the laws of Canada. Below are some of the products and services that we intend to offer. Rifle, pistol, and tactical, firearm safety training and classes, gun cleaning, gunsmith, sale of related accessories, gun range membership. Our vision is to be the preferred go-to all-exclusive sport and educational shooting range for all various customers here in the Southern Ontario and Simcoe region. Our mission statement would be able to achieve our vision. We need to intend to operate the 3 indoor shooting ranges, the 3-tier training sessions, and develop a membership group that is properly trained and comfortable with the safe handling and marksmanship of sports shooting. A large pool of customers, both old and young, and will continuously flow through the training to members and to the club to widely recognized throughout Southern Ontario and Canada. Finally, due to the fact that we intend to run our business that is of a high standard, we have contracted reputable business consultant Action Targets out of the US to help us not only look through our business concept, but also examine this concept and know if we were suitable enough to compete with others in the market, and what leverage we had over the others in the same business. Action Target is approved by the OCFO, as they have built multiple ranges in Canada. Examples: Calgary Police Force, RCMP, and locally the Whitby Police Force.
Mr. Gray, I'm just going to jump in. I'm just keeping an eye out on the time. If you could wrap up the presentation, and if any members of the committee have specific questions about your business plan, I'm sure they could ask those at that time.
So I can quickly go through the PowerPoint, I guess, basically. Oh, the second slide, the Canadian sports is a culture. So target shooting safety is unsurpassed by any other sport. It's a lifetime sport, equal opportunity, rear-round sport. The shooting sports offer so many benefits that no matter which discipline is right for you, whether you are young, adult, senior, whether you're male or female, or whether you're able-bodied or physically challenged, shooting sports are accessible to you. The Canadian Sports Arms and Ammunition Association, Hunting and Sporting, Canadians spent roughly $8.5 billion on hunting and sports shooting. Hunting and sports shooting contributed for approximately $5.9 billion to Canada's GDP. And hunting and sports shooting account for 48,000 full-time equivalent jobs, resulting in $6.4 billion in labor income. The Conference Board of Canada sports shooting is growing in popularity, and estimated at 1.4 million Canadians participate in shooting sports, and $2.6 billion was spent on shooting. There's direct impacts and so on that you can see that are on the slide there. So the Canadian Commissioner of Firearms Report 2018 positive trends. So when the Trudeau government was elected in 2015,
Mr. Gray, I'm just going to have to cut you off. So we have a meeting at 7 p.m. that had notices go out to dozens of people. So again, I hate to cut you off. We have gone over the 5 minutes. I think we're almost at 9. If members of committee do have questions about your business presentation, we're more than happy to ask that. But if you have any wrapping comments in the next couple of seconds, again, if there's something that you were waiting for the end of the presentation that you want to say now, but I'm just trying to make sure that the committee does have enough time to do its business and start the planning meeting at 7 p.m.
I guess the biggest slide would be the one that's the survey of the gun clubs in the area. I guess there's, you can see that slide. There's a bunch of different gun facilities within the Simcoe area. All of them are outdoor shooting facilities except for Target Sports, which is indoor. All of them are fully booked. There's waiting lists. I got my license roughly 5 years ago, and I have not been able to get into a shooting facility based on the waiting list. So there's the big demand, not enough supply. And I guess we feel that Barrie would be the ideal location for this, with people traveling from Toronto and different areas and being in the hunting area for people that like to hunt.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mr. Gray, for the presentation. Do members of committee have any questions for Mr. Gray on this presentation? Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Yeah, actually, I didn't know anything about this up and coming. It is in my ward until I saw it on the agenda late last week. Now I see your going to be building on King Street. Are you affiliated with the Lynx Kitchen and Social, which is located on the same street and spelt the same way that you propose your business to be named?
No, we're not. No, we're not. And that's just, I mean, we were directed to the light industrial by planning. So we would be looking for an exemption for light industrial because we meet that zoning requirement as a recreational use. But yeah, we're not associated with them. It's just a name that we came up if we were to have multiple locations.
And I'm just curious, what's your experience in owning and operating any other ranges, whether indoor or outdoor? And what would the makeup of this building be? Are you proposing a single standalone building so that way there wouldn't be any adjacent units that are potentially affected by the noise and vibration?
Yeah, it would be, yes, we were, if all goes well, then we would work out a deal with the owners of the building. It would be standalone. We would own, I guess, have access to the whole building. And then based on our build out requirements through Action Target, I mean, you would have soundproofing, and the Ontario Fire Chief or Firearms Officer is a regulating body that would monitor us and making sure that we're complying with all their guidelines.
I just have one last question, and this is one that you may or may not have the answer to. However, this is an ongoing issue with some of these other ranges, some of which you've actually highlighted this evening. And that is allowing non-registered gun owners to attend the facilities without having a legitimate FAC and be able to shoot for training purposes. And where this has become an issue is there has been some known criminal element involved that have attended some of these other locations and have been able to shoot without an FAC. Is that any intent of your group to allow that?
No, we would be strictly private, like Berry Gun Club. We would be strictly private. You'd have to go through our training, 2-week training course internally, and then obviously through our training courses to get your license. And then we would offer the other tiers, because the biggest problem for most people right now is they go and get their gun license and they have no other training. By the time their license come in 3-4 months down the road, and then by the time they maybe purchase a firearm, they've forgotten half of their stuff. So we want to take that to another level, teach people how to handle it properly, so we're not having these issues or any accidents that may happen, and teaching people properly. And that's why we also have incorporated our partners that are actually ex-military and current SWAT officers with Barrie. And we've actually had some conversations with the Perry Police Force and maybe being able to use that for their training facilities as well for their certifications.
Yeah, I guess I'm not going to get into that too much, but I think with the fact that a couple of their members are involved in this, you got to watch that a couple of your partners don't end up into a conflict of interest with that piece of it. But I'll leave that alone. That's up to you guys and your business partners to go through that. Thank you, Councillor Morales.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other Councillor Jim Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Through you to the presenter, I know very little about guns, but just curious, noting the increase in popularity of target shooting with millennials and the comments about safety. Just curious, with technologies, the actual use of guns with bullets hitting targets going to be something that's out of date? Is there efforts to make this safer such that you're not actually shooting in the old-fashioned style? Is that the full-on intention moving forward, or will there be enhancements with technology to make this hobby safer?
Yeah, I guess it could over time. Yes, I agree. I mean, obviously the technology is coming out, but the true fact is for the service people in the security industries and stuff is to obviously operate a real gun. But yeah, some of those aspects are already there. I mean, you see that in laser tag and different recreation pursuits that people can do. So they are there.
Great.
That helped any.
That's great. Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah,
not an area I know much about, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jim Harris. Any other questions from members of committee? No? Any other questions from non-members of committee attending? No? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gray, for the presentation. There's no more further questions, but thank you for your presentation. We will move on. I'm just going to go to the clerk on this one. Are we going to advisory committee reports, Ms. Cook? I'm just trying to follow the agenda here.
Here. Chair Morales, we could either, if any members of council have questions on the accompanying memo to the open delegation, they can ask those questions now. And if not, then yes, you would move to advisory reports.
Okay, well, let's bump up the memo just because it's down at 6.1. So unless any members of committee have any opposition to doing that, report 6.1 being the memo from Ms. Cook, City Clerk Director, dated February 23rd, 2021, requesting a request for exemption from regulatory bylaw 2010-036 as amended to permit an indoor gun range at 342 King Street, Barrie. No oppositions? Okay, so we'll have that on the floor to receive as printed, Ms. Cook? Is how we're putting it on the floor? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Are there any questions or amendments? Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead. And then Councillor Harvey.
This actually may be a question for the two members of the committee that are also on the police commission. I remember when we were building the new facility on Fairview, there was talk about a gun range, and I think the gun range was pulled to save a few dollars, at least immediately. So question is, where are Barrie police being trained now, and would they ever consider using a private facility for their training?
They're currently training at Hunters and Anglers, and yes, I think they would consider a private facility.
Okay, perfect.
A follow-up, what's happening? So there is no gun range being built right now in the new facility, correct? Is that true?
So that was Building B, Deputy Mayor Ward, and you may remember as the previous council approved Buildings A and C on the First Responders Campus, but not Building B, which contained the firearms range.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. Actually, my question would be for the clerk, and it's in regards to process, because obviously this is in my ward, and I just want to make sure that this doesn't potentially blow up to be something much larger. With this particular exemption, obviously we're tonight approving exemption of that bylaw. It's not just receiving the presentation from what I'm reading in front of us. Has there been any notices that have gone out to all of the businesses along King Street to see what the other businesses in the area have got to say, or just to see if there is any opposition? Because I would hate to pass a bylaw tonight permitting this and then all of a sudden get bombarded by hundreds of businesses in the coming days because they weren't even aware of this, because most people don't follow the agendas close enough, and I would highly suspect that notices were probably not sent out.
Ms. Cook?
Through you, Councillor Morales, to Councillor Harvey. There is no recommendation on the memo to provide an exemption to the regulatory bylaw. The memo was just provided for information to members of council on what is contained currently in the regulatory bylaw concerning gun ranges and gun clubs. Should Finance and Corporate Services wish to put a motion forward, staff had provided some suggested wording in the memo on page 2 that that asks staff in Legislative and Court Services Department to work with the proponent, the Chief Firearms Office, and Barrie Police to identify applicable regulations, the potential amendments to any Barrie bylaws to provide such an exemption, and as well as any implications of the proposed gun range, and report back to General Committee. So there is no recommendation unless a member of the committee wants to put one forward, but the memo was just put on for information.
Okay, I obviously was misreading it here, but I'm fine with staff's recommendation, but I would also, if that's the direction that this committee decides to go, I would also be placing an amendment onto that because I think it's important that the local businesses in the area that are potentially going to be affected by this at least are notified ahead of time to give them that ample opportunity to provide input, either positive or negative to this.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any members of committee moving forward amendments on the memo to be received? Anybody getting it off the ground? Mayor Lehman, go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, there's no staff recommendation. There's a memo that has recommended language should committee wish to move a motion. So I think the proper procedure at this point would be for a member of the committee to move the motion. The motion specifies a report back to general committee. So we would not even be approving the exemption tonight. And I think Councillor Harvey, with his concern, could amend that motion or put a different motion on the floor that requires consultation with the businesses. So just a suggestion on procedure there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. So I'm just gonna ask one more time, any members of committee willing to move that staff recommendation? Okay, I will give the virtual chair to Councillor Jim Harris for the moment now. I'll put it on the floor and then we'll just kind of get it going on that. Okay, so I saw Deputy Mayor, so I'll put it on the floor as printed, Ms. Cook. I saw Deputy Mayor Ward, and then I saw a yes from Councillor Thompson. I don't know if that's the speaker
Well,
to vote.
I'll put it on the floor. I mean,
Oh.
it's no use you stepping down from the chair. I'll put it on the floor.
Yeah, that's what
And
I was.
and to ask for a staff report.
Okay, perfect. So put on by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Okay, perfect. Okay, Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. I would just like to add that staff also notify all businesses in the commercial King Street area of this potential exemption
Perfect.
to allow them to provide input. Thank you.
Ms. Cook, do we need a radius on notice from Councillor Harvey, or King Street, it's small enough that it's self-explanatory?
King Street self-explanatory. We can.
Okay, perfect. So the amendments on the floor. So we'll vote on the amendment first. Any questions, comments before we vote on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. In favor, as am I. Okay, that passes unanimously. Perfect. We're back to the amended motion. So that's the staff text with the amendment that just passed. Any questions or comments on that? None, seeing none. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate. In favor, as am I. Perfect. As am I. Perfect. Okay, so that passes unanimously. So we have dealt with the amendment from section 6. We will now move to advisory committee reports. We have 2 advisory committee reports to be received. Could I have a member of committee put forward the advisory reports? That includes Community Safety and Wellness and Wellbeing Committee, January 14th of this year, and the Accessibility Advisory Committee, dated February 11th of this year. Could I have a member of committee put this on the floor? Councillor Thompson? Perfect. Any questions on the reports? None? All those in favor of adopting them? Indicate. Perfect. Those are adopted. We have 3 recommendations from the advisory committee reports. The first recommendation is from the report of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, dated January 14th, 2021. The motion is as follows. Our shared plan for a safer Barrie, the City of Barrie's first Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, 2021 to 2024. That our shared plan for a safer Barrie, the City of Barrie's first Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, 2021-2022, to 2024, circulated on January 14th, 2021, be accepted, subject to minor revisions to reflect the intent of the discussions during the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee meeting held on January 14th, 2021. Could I have a member of committee move that motion? Councillor Harvey? Perfect. Any discussion on the motion that is being adopted? Deputy Mayor Ward and then Mayor Lehman? Nope. Mayor Lehman, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to note this is the culmination of several years' work. The Barrie Fire and Emergency Service, the Barrie Police Service, and a huge number of community stakeholders, including social services, charities and organizations supporting marginalized communities and others in our city have contributed towards this plan. And I recognize tonight is probably not the night to go through it in detail, but I didn't want to let the moment pass without recognizing that Staff Sergeant Val Gates of the Barrie Police and Chief Main Prize and the Barrie Fire and Emergency Service and a number of other folks have put a huge amount of effort here into reaching out to our community to talk about how we can address the root causes of some of the community safety challenges in Barrie. And this is part of a broader theme, which I think is aligned with a number of council's strategic priorities and other initiatives. But I really just didn't want to let this go, Mr. Chair, without noting that in addition to ticking the legislative requirement box, which we always like to do in municipal government, there's actually quite an innovative blueprint here. Municipalities have gone in a number of different directions with these plans. Some read like a police strategic plan. Others read like a first responders master plan. Ours is much more than that, and I think significantly shifts the attention to some of the reasons why we get calls for service, not just addressing the calls for service themselves. So I wanted to recognize the work of the committee and especially of the staff who have spent a huge amount of time getting to this point through multiple rounds of public and stakeholder consultation. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary Lehman. And like you said, there'll be many opportunities, general committee, council, and then to convey that good information to members of the public. Do I see any other questions or comments on this? Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Morales. I appreciate Mayor Lehman slowing us down and having a comment. I think it's really important work. And I was just curious. I know the County of Simcoe has hired a consultant to do the remainder of the community safety and well-being plans across the county. So I was just curious. I know it says minor revision, so maybe somebody from the community could speak about, is there any conversation around how our plan would connect with those plans throughout the county that are being developed currently? So I'm not sure if who's on the committee here. Maybe Ms. McAlpine just popped up there. So maybe to you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. McAlpine. Thank you.
Ms. McAlpine.
Thank you. And at first, I'd give the opportunity to Councillor Harvey, since he sits on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, in case he would like to add anything before I would speak.
Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. McAlpine. No, actually, I really don't have anything to add. I know we did have a very good leadership team that got us to where we were in a very quick period of time, and we did have a consultant working with the team. But when it came to direct discussions and the linkages together with the county, I would probably not be the best person to be answering that.
And further to Councillor Harvey's comment, there has been consultation with the County of Simcoe, in particular related to one of the specific recommendations that involves them. While there are the county is preparing a plan for the municipalities that are part of its tier, and ours is a separate plan, there is that integration, and Barrie Police has taken a strong lead on preparing the plan as the mayor indicated, with their ability to obtain some funding for a consultant to help with that public consultation aspect of things and ensure that all of the community stakeholders have had an opportunity to speak.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. McAlpine. Councillor Harvey, you have any follow-up?
Nothing further, Chair Morales.
Okay, perfect. Any other members of committee?
Sorry, I'll just finish. Sorry, Councillor Morales. I just wanted to, may I just thank Councillor Harvey and Ms. McAlpine. And it's great I know with all the other municipalities working under one collective, it's great to know that Barrie is still connected, even though Barrie was ahead and finishing ahead of them. We're working together. So just great to make that point for everybody. So thank you.
Perfect. And my apologies, Councillor Jim Harris. I thought Councillor Harvey still had the floor. I blanked on that. So no disrespect on that. Thank you for that. Any other members of committee have any questions, comments? Non-members of committee, councillors attending? No? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor? indicated. Unanimous vote. Thank you very much. That is adopted and moves on to general committee. The other one that we have here is a recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory Committee dated February 11th, 2021, platform wheelchair swing proposal. That staff in the Development Services and Operation Departments investigated the feasibility of installing a platform wheelchair swing in a public park based on the funding secured by local recipients and as presented at the committee's meeting held on February 11th, 2021, and report back to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Can I have a member of committee move that motion, please? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Ward. Any questions or comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
I actually sit, through you, Chair, I sit on the Accessibility Committee. This was a presentation the other day, or at our last meeting, and there's been a fundraiser with a hockey game, and there's some money that come out of Halton region. I think that some of the money has to stay there, and some of the money would come to Barrie. And there's a family that are working with, I think it's Kevin Bradley, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So they're already in the works, and it's just about the funding of what is eligible. And then if there's any more funding needed and the feasibility of where it would go and stuff. I believe the presentation, they live in Ward 6, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, perfect. Ms. Miller, anything to add from staff's side to those comments?
Thank you, Chair Morales. Staff have been working with the family who was and Councillor Natalie Harris with respect to this request, and staff are in support of it. We did note that there is only one park in Councillor Harris's award that would accommodate this swing, but it really is a matter of the funding because there isn't any funding right now in our budget, but the family has been doing some fundraising.
Perfect. Okay, good to hear that they're working in unison on that. Any other questions or comments from councillors? No? Okay, I'll take the vote. All those in favor, please indicate. In favor, passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving forward, reports to committee. We're at report 6, previously 6.2.
Mr. Chair, can I just interrupt? The city clerk has her hand up.
Oh, Ms. Cook, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you when you were reading the previous motion, but you did miss a second motion for the Community Safety Wellbeing Committee. So if we could just go back and deal with that one. I guess it kind of looked on the speaking notes that they were merged together, but they're actually two different motions.
It does. Yeah, they did look. Thank you for that,
Sorry
Ms.
about that.
So we'll, before we move on to that section, I will recognize that I saw Ms. Swan celebrate the passing of the wheelchair swing proposal. So I appreciate the support digitally there. So moving to the second recommendation for us to adopt regarding this, titled Report to Present Our Shared Plan for a Safer Barrie, the City of Barrie's First Community and Safety Wellbeing Plan 2021 to 2024. That staff in the Barrie Fire and Emergency Service Department prepare a staff report to present the publication ready version of our shared plan for a safer Barrie, the City of Barrie's First Community and Safety Wellbeing Plan 2021 to 2024 to General Committee and City Council. Can I have a member of committee move that motion? Yeah, Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Mayor Lehman. Any questions or comments? No? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Perfect. Okay, so they're going to come back to us. We did the wheelchair swing proposal. So now we're at 6.2, water bill payment deferral scenarios. That the report to Finance and Corporate Services Committee dated February 23rd, 2021 concerning water bill payment deferral scenarios be received for information purposes. Can I have a member of committee place the motion on the floor? Councillor Jim Harris. Perfect. It's on the floor. Do any members of committee have any questions, comments, amendments? Mayor Lehman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This was my motion from the budget. As many of you may remember, I asked staff to take a look at this because of the information specifically that is in Appendix B, which is the total accounts receivable aging, which is the number of bills that are unpaid. And we received this information or a version of this table during the budget debate. The key number is really the last one before the total on the top line in 2020. And I draw the committee's attention, it's page 6 of the report. You know, if you sort of look at what's happened through the course of 2019 versus 2020, the impact of the deferral scenarios previously and the pandemic are very obvious, and actually they're obvious in the previous appendix as well, which highlights the increase in consumption on the residential side. So everybody had to stay home. People were doing a lot more cleaning. They used a lot more water. They ended up with big water bills. And then we probably unintentionally created more attention to that because we allowed them to not pay them through the course of the summer. So they got whacked with a very large bill at the end of the summer. It's always a risk doing a good thing. And by giving people more time to pay, we did end up with some folks certainly contacting my office saying, what the heck, I got 2 huge water bills, one really big one, and then another almost as big one, very close together in the fall. So that's a cautionary note, and I take staff's note about that in the report to heart, that you got to be careful when you do this sort of thing, that you don't create a situation where, although you help people during the deferral period, the bill does come due. But if you look at these numbers, that over 84 days, we had never had receivables greater than $750,000. Well, there was a 785 in February of 2020, but then the pandemic hit, and you just look at that number climb up to 1.3 million by September. It did come down a bit as people paid those bills, but the number remained high at 1.1 million through the course of December. I guess, Mr. Chair, I'd actually like to speak in favor of the motion, because my thought is that the other motion I passed at council, which is to establish a low income assistance program to pay high water bills, will probably address the concern that led to this amendment. My concern with the amendment was that this, you know, the effect of the stay-at-home order and the additional cleaning that people do during a pandemic, having the kids at home 24/7, is to particularly impact large families. And at the lower income of the income spectrum, that had resulted, you know, we don't have income data for who didn't pay their bill, but fair assumption that people might have been struggling with these larger than normal bills. And even when the deferral periods ended, we saw those extended receivables stay high. So while I think in part because of the experience of, you know, creating a bigger bill to be paid later, I do think it may be better to address the core issue, which is that water bills are now high enough and unusually high enough during COVID that some people will struggle to pay them. And the experience in the electricity sector is that a low-income assistance program can actually bring your receivables down, because you help people pay their bill and then they pay the other part of the bill, whereas without the assistance, they don't pay any of it and they just let it run up. The other thing I wanted to mention on this report is we have had a number of ongoing complaints from landlords whose tenants run up the bill, knowing that ultimately when they leave, that bill gets transferred to the property taxes of the owner. So they escape accountability for their own high consumption for whatever reason. They may have very valid financial challenges, or they may simply just think they can get away with it. But that's something unique to water that is a bit problematic. And because there are no shutoffs right now due to the pandemic, we've actually seen some extreme cases there where people have because they know it can't be shut off, because they know ultimately they don't have to pay, through the roof, thousands of dollars. So I think the best answer is probably the low income assistance program. If like in other utility sectors, it is successful in helping people who need the help, first of all, rather than the broad deferrals, which sort of helps everybody whether they really need it or not. And then secondly, because it can actually help us, hopefully, if it works well, bring down those receivables, which remained high in December. So I really appreciated this report. I appreciate that staff gave us a complete picture of consumption, of the changes that have happened during COVID, and of the impact of our choices back in April. I guess the only thing that this reminds me is that those over 84-day bills and those financial struggles during COVID grow month by month. So hopefully there will be the opportunity for staff to bring forward this program in the coming months, the low income assistance program, and council will support it. We could always at that time fall back on a deferral or a selective deferral program if council doesn't support the low income program that's brought forward. So all of that to say, Mr. Chair, because I know this is an issue that comes to my office on a fairly frequent basis when they go through the process with the water department, who are wonderful, by the way, on customer service, very understanding. They often set up payment arrangements, but the numbers tell the story. We do have a number of people here who continue to struggle or choose not to pay their bills. And I believe that means we should do things a little differently. So I'll look forward to the low income report. And I'm happy for tonight to support just receiving this information and not setting up another round of deferrals as we did in April of last year.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Actually, just a follow-up to a piece of what Mayor Lehman just spoke about. What would the rationale be as to why water bills are dealt with in a different fashion than hydro bills, and placing that burden on landlords opposed to the actual end user? Are you aware of the rationale?
Mr. Miller?
Through you, Chairman Morales. At the end of the day, if from a collection standpoint, under the Municipal Act, municipalities can move outstanding water bills over to the tax roll. So ultimately it's tied to the property owner. If we didn't have that opportunity to do that, it would be the municipality who would be covering those losses.
Miss Councillor Harvey, follow up?
Yeah, no, I fully understand that piece, but I'm just trying to understand the rationale. Like, I mean, obviously we're a shareholder in Electra, but the hydro bills are dealt with in a totally different fashion, and it just, I can't get my head wrapped around why we deal with hydro one way, but we deal with wastewater, our water bills a different way.
Mr. Miller?
I see Miss McAlpine jumped on, so I'll defer to her if she wants to take a shot.
Go ahead, Ms. McAlpine.
Thank you, Chair Morales, and through you to Councillor Harvey. I think a key element here is at a point in time, there was a council decision to allow this option of tenant, a system where tenants landlords are allowed to sign up their tenants, and then they're responsible for the balance if the tenant doesn't pay. That's not something that utility companies have typically allowed, but it was a council motion a number of years ago. And I'll let Mr. Miller elaborate if I've missed anything on that, but it's a as it was within council's purview, it was something that was decided then.
Mr. Miller?
And just to follow up on that as well, under the Municipal Act, water is tied to the property, whereas hydro is not. So that opportunity or flexibility is within the Act.
Okay, Councillor Harvey, go ahead.
Yeah, just one last follow-up to it then. I guess the other piece that sort of complicates it too is the second suites that obviously we have a lot around the city, and more recently we have rear garden houses that I just learned about a few months ago when a resident had called me. Now, when it comes to these second suites and the third garden house option, are they on separate hydro and water meters, or are they all connected to that one main property?
Ms. McAlpine, I'll start with you.
My apologies. I'll defer to Mr. Miller, or actually Ms. Miller in this case, since it's the water department that it's the staff in environmental infrastructure, sorry, get the name right, that are responsible for the connections. We're responsible for collecting.
Perfect. Ms. Miller, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Generally speaking, for the second suite, so the second unit in the primary dwelling, you could have separate hydro. Generally, the water would be the same, but for the third suite, there generally needs to be a second water line. That is some of the information that we're still trying to work through with this new accessory dwelling legislation. But it could be a number of different approaches depending on the particular property.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. Councillor Harvey, you still have the floor.
No, that's great. Thanks, Chair Morales. It does sound like it's gets quite complicated.
Perfect. Okay. We opened Pandora's box, no worries. So the motion is as read. Any other questions from members of committee? No? Members of non-committee? No? Okay, perfect. So we would be voting to essentially adopt this as printed at the current moment. All those in favor, please indicate. Okay. Adopted unanimously. Perfect. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the meeting. This concludes the meeting at 6:48 p.m. Meeting is adjourned, and for those watching tonight, Planning Committee will convene at 7 p.m. Thank you, everybody.